Good afternoon and welcome to a webinar from Linköping University. Today we are going to learn about why study at LiU. LiU is Linköping University, but we tend to call it LiU. My name is Therese and I'm a communications officer and I'm here with two of our amazing students. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Abhijit and I come from India. I'm currently in my second semester of my master's degree in statistics and machine learning.
Yes, my name is Una and I'm coming from Greece and I'm studying a master in animal biology, in applied ethology animal biology.
Good, thank you. Well, we're going to talk about a few things, a lot of kind of general information, but we'll talk about why you should come and join us. You'll get lots of insights from these guys, how to apply, and a general overview of which programs we have. But hopefully by the end of this, you'll have a feel for what it's like to be a student at Linköping University. Before I let the students tell you about their lives and experiences, just a few housekeeping things. Questions, please put your questions in the questions section. It says Q&A, not in the chat. In the chat, you can just say hi to each other, but we will answer questions in the questions section. We'll also answer these questions at the end. So even if you do kind of write them down and put them throughout the webinar, we won't answer them straight away. But however, I do have a colleague, Karina, behind the scenes, who is also working with us, and she might answer some of your questions in writing. The webinar is also recorded, so you'll be able to watch it again at a later date via YouTube or Vimeo. Right, I think that's enough for the intro. Please, you two, tell us a bit more about yourselves. Not just where you're from, but why did you choose to come here and study the programs that you're studying?
Me?
Do you want to start?
Yeah. So I chose LiU and Sweden because of one of the great work-life balance that Sweden offers to all the employees. Another important factor to study in Sweden that I want to work here as well after my studies, and there's no language barrier. I can get work with English as well, and that would be very comfortable for me to go ahead with. And of course, the great weather that Sweden has is one of the most beautiful weather that I believe we can experience all throughout the globe. So I would love that.
Really? That is funny because most people are really scared of the weather here.
Initially, I was scared too because I'm not so fond of winter, and Sweden offers you 5+ months of winter.
Yeah.
And myself experienced like 19 degrees in Linköping itself during the peak time of winter. So at that time, somehow I felt like, is it the great weather that I was thinking of? But then I realized, yeah, this too shall pass. And it was a great experience, and I could feel the cold burning on my face.
Most people fear that.
Of course, yeah, I do fear that.
Yeah.
And this is the first time that I experienced any negative temperature in my entire life. So it was thrilling, scary, adventurous. I can be short of words, but yeah, it was a really amazing experience. And now we are ready to embrace the spring as well.
Yeah.
So yes, this is getting beautiful day by day. The sun is. We experience sun longer during the days now, so I'm loving the weather. Yeah, initially I was scared too, but yeah, it went well. No, I should say that. Yeah, it went well, of course.
Yeah. What about you, Una? How come you chose Linköping University and the program that you're studying?
Yes, so definitely people talked about the weather, but for me it was a little bit different because I was focused mostly on the academics. So I did a lot of research. I think it was almost 2 years that I was trying to find the perfect master for me. And this was like my top choice. I didn't even look any further. So for me, it was just based on the master itself, the program, and not the country that much. But yes, as it comes from winter, I was really prepared because I've heard a lot of stories and I had a lot of winter clothes with me. So this is an advice I would suggest to everyone.
But the houses, I mean, it's warm indoors. I have to, say that because a lot of people, I lived in London and the dampness and the chill you get inside the flats is different. We walk around in t-shirts and everything here.
And that's the reason I didn't come out of my home a lot during the winter, which I didn't like it, but I felt so comfortable walking in shorts or maybe my pajamas. I felt so uncomfortable because I need to dress for like 10, 12, 15 minutes to go out and get milk for me. Yeah, but
online shopping. That's a tip for you.
Yeah.
But what about the academic side of your program? So you're doing statistics.
Yeah.
Was that your background in your bachelor's as well?
I did electronics and communication in my bachelor's, and I completed my bachelor's in 2018. And post that, I was working as a software developer at one of the German company, that's Siemens, for 3 years. And I got myself so comfortable with the programming, and I felt like machine learning and statistics would be somewhat my next achievement that I can plan to. So after working for 3 years, during that period, I felt I should study more, and machine learning was really fascinating, and I tried to dig a lot about it. I did several courses online, and then I felt like, this could be a good match with my previous experience of electronics and also the current programming experience. So looking at the current scenarios and my interest towards mathematics and programming, because mathematics had always been my favorite subject and programming was my current interest. So if you merge them both, you get machine learning. That's why I chose
which is
the
very
program.
topical as well.
Of course.
And your program it's very different.
Yes, I never liked mathematics, so my background was in agriculture actually, and when we talk later on, I'll give a little bit of advice of how I enrolled in this program. But yes, my bachelor was 5 years in agriculture, and then I was searching for a while to find the perfect master because I wanted to get out of this agriculture aspect. So I found this program because I love animals. You have to like animals, of course, to be here. And yes, and I made a switch and I was accepted, and now we're here.
Excellent. So what about kind of the academic side in terms of lectures versus self-study, or did you find that it was a different approach by the teachers here to what you were used to in your previous?
Well, definitely. It was also something that I was advised on because I was used to a completely different structure, and we had a lot of lectures in my bachelor's, and that's it. And then you have to self-study. But here we mostly have a lot of lectures, seminars, and there's a lot of group works. There's also independent studies at some point, but they're mostly group works. So a lot of project involves. There's honestly little time to do anything else. But it's really rewarding, I have to say. You learn a lot.
That's good. What about you?
I'll agree with Suna as well, because back in bachelor's we had too many lectures. I can remember we had lectures from starting with 8 a.m. sometimes goes to 6 p.m. or 7 p.m. as well, straight with 2 breaks maybe for half an hour and 1.5 hours for snacks and lunches. But we had too many lectures, and we used to get a very little time for ourselves, for self-studies. Imagine sitting in the classroom from 8 a.m. till 6 p.m. The motivation and the tiredness, like you get so tired and you don't have that much of motivation to do the self-work. But here, I believe we have hardly 0, 1 or 2 number of classes in a day. Either there are no classes or 1 or 2 at max. And then we get to work a lot on ourselves. Like self-studies are more focused. We get too many assignments to work, and of course the group work is always appreciated. I remember we had groups of 2, 4, 3 and 5 as well for some of the laboratories. So we are more here pushed towards working in a group, and also to study more by ourselves rather than just attending the lectures.
And that has its own challenges, I suppose,
of
in
course.
the fact that you have to be, focused and proactive.
Of course.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
How have you found that a challenge, or?
Initially, yes, because I was not used to this kind of curriculum. I was more towards attending lectures, going to classes, and because of Corona, the lectures, the 1 or 2 lectures that were supposed to be there during the classroom, even that we had it either online or pre-recorded. So there was a lot of change from the previous education. And it was challenging initially, but now we are kind of used to it. And I'm liking this style of education more because I get to work more rather than me being taught for the entire day.
Just listening, yeah. Do you agree?
Yes, I completely agree. I also had a lot of challenge in the beginning, but it's really encouraging to see that others are struggling as well, so you're not alone in this.
Yeah.
So yes, but it took some time to get used to it, but now it's it's really
and there is
easy,
help. You know,
Yes,
we
there's a
have
lot of
lots
help,
of study
yeah.
counsellors, and you know, they can help you draw up study plans where you actually kind of do it almost like a daily chart of, you know, what you need to do and what to achieve, and to be organised. Really. And I think when I've spoken to students in the past, you know, one of the things they've said to me is, you know, get kind of stuck in from the beginning. Don't kind of start going, oh yeah, great, lots of, you know, fun things to do. But actually, you know, get there, start your studies straight away, so that you keep up with it. I'm actually going to show a slide of because we have more than these two programs. We have 30 programs, 29 master's programs and 1 bachelor program. But we have a slide, and I think it should be on your screen now. As you can see on this one, we start with engineering and computer sciences, and the university actually started in 1969 as an institute of technology. We didn't become a university until 1975, so we are still a very young university, still under 50. But the fastest growing area of our programs is actually the Faculty of Arts and Sciences, so the more social science programs. A lot of our programs are kind of thematic and cross-disciplinary. You can see, for example, industrial engineering and management, where we were the first ones in Sweden to establish this kind of education, where you look at both engineering and a management perspective. And I think quite a few of our programs take in these different aspects, like biomedical engineering, for example. It's both biomedicine and engineering, and look at it from different perspectives. There's also a thread of sustainability in a lot of our programs, ecology and environment, sustainable development, and I can imagine, you know, yours as well to a certain extent with the animal biology is kind of how to keep it sustainable. If we go to the next slide. Yeah, there we go. We have as your program. Your program was on the previous page, but now we have yours. So we see the social sciences and humanities, and I think what we want to do and achieve as a university is to solve the challenges of today, and a lot of these programs work towards that. So, you know, we have an aging and social change, for example, which is our newest program. You know, it's, you know, many, especially Western countries, but I think even in countries, the rest of the world, as they become wealthier, have an aging population, and how do we meet those challenges? Strategic urban and regional planning, for example, you know, there's a lot of really, really big cities out there, and that, you know, has its own challenges. So our programs reflect this kind of desire to solve the challenges of today and kind of make inroads into the future. If we stop presenting now, and we'll go to these key dates in a minute. Because we're going to look at those key dates in a minute. That's a brief overview. I mean, have a look at more information about the university, and we have a brochure. That's the brochure, which you can actually flick through online. If you go to liu.sce/education, you'll see all the programs, and you'll have information about each program. Yes, the statistics and machine learning. But the application process. Let's talk a bit about it. How did you find it?
It was not that difficult because we did everything through the university admissions, and many things were available online, what are the steps and what are not. And if we were anywhere stuck, we can go to our program page of the university, we can find most of the details. And even if that becomes a bit difficult, there are always social media from the university that is available. We have international blog from the students and Instagram accounts where people are always ready to help if you have any queries. So the process was not that difficult, and it was kind of easy. When I shouldn't say easy or difficult, it was not so easy and not so difficult. It was it was a new thing for me to apply somewhere outside India. The process was a little different to compile all the documents. It was very different but not difficult, and the time that we get from 15th of October to mid of January, so the time is given in ample amount. So if we are stuck at anything, we can definitely figure this out.
How about you?
Yes, well, as an EU student, I think it's pretty straightforward. They have exactly all the requirements that you want in each program. For me, the only thing was that because I was coming from an agriculture background, one of the requirements to have is some kind of minimum, I don't remember exactly, but minimum ECTS in animal biology, which I was afraid or concerned that I wasn't going to fulfill the requirements. But the good thing is that you can call them, as I did, and ask a little bit more information and things that you're unsure of. And in doing so, I was assured that I can apply, and of course, I got accepted. But the whole procedure is really easy and pretty straightforward. Everything seems, there are even videos that you can watch how to do step by step, so it's really good. Yeah.
We actually have a page, a how to apply page, with lots of information and a kind of a flow chart as well of different steps. But I think you do raise an important point in that if you aren't sure if you meet the specific requirements, upload a syllabus for those courses.
Yeah.
So because that will, for example, if you have done a course, you need applied maths, which you won't, but if you say you need that, and you're not sure if that's actually what you've done as one of your courses, because yours is just called general maths or something, if you include the syllabus, we'll be able to see that it is actually a match.
Yeah.
So I think that's good. The application process, we're going to have a look at the dates. So if we can have the presentation again, please. Thank you. I'm going to look at the key dates, but the application process, you apply by going to universityadmissions.se. And you can apply for up to 4 programs at the same university or 4 different Swedish universities. And the process is, as you said, it was different, but not difficult.
Exactly.
And if you kind of plan ahead, I think what you need to be aware of is keep an eye on the dates, really, because, for example, if you need to prove your English, which a lot of countries do, but you didn't, since you probably did a 4-year engineering degree in India.
Yes.
So you would have been exempt. But if you hadn't, you would have had to provide an English test. And sometimes the queue or the opportunities to take these tests are not that kind of, it's not that often. So again, have a think about it. So when you want to apply, look at the deadlines, make sure that you start in good time. We have 2 different application periods, and the one that we recommend that everybody uses is really the one for both non-EU and EU citizens. And you apply middle of October when it opens, 15th of October, and it closes usually 15th of January. Sometimes it's 17th of January, depending on, if it's a weekend or so. And you have, so you apply 15th of January, it's a deadline, and then by early February, usually 1st of February, you have to submit the supporting documents. So, the English test, your proof of citizenship, if you want to be exempt from fees, your diploma, anything else. Transcripts, exactly. Those things you have until the 1st of February to upload. That means your application will be on time. And if you have an on-time application and you have to pay fees, you can also apply for a scholarship, which is a bit later on. Early April, admission results come out. This year is the 7th. And then there's a window between this year again, 7th and 10th of April, but that might not be the same. You can apply for a scholarship. And the scholarship is a tuition fee waiver, partial tuition fee waiver. And then the 1st of June there's the fee payment deadline. And after that, once you've paid the fee, you can apply for a residence permit. So this is for non-EU students. And because this period is most programs, I think there's one or 2 open still, have closed. You are now looking at the 2023 intake. So not this August, but next August. However, and this again is done on universityadmissions.se. However, if you're an EU or EEA citizen, you can actually apply now because there's an application period that's opened, I think today actually, 15th. And it closes on the 19th. The problem with this one, it's only at antagning.se, so it's in Swedish. We have a video on our webpage talking you through this. So basically we're explaining it to you with all the steps that you need to follow. But only students who do not require a residence permit can apply in this round because the results will come out too late to be able to get a residence permit on time. Would you like to add anything?
Yeah, maybe for the later part in the scholarship that we can add to. I had some point, but yeah, I guess we didn't talk about the scholarship. We can add it there.
We can do. Is there
Yes.
anything you'd like to add about the scholarship part?
Oh yeah, the universities that you rank, then the universities need to be ranked one to be applied for the scholarship.
Yeah. No, that's a really good point. You do have to, I mean, with the 4 universities that you can apply for, the ranking is important. So most universities will require that you have chosen the one you want to apply for a scholarship to as your number 1 program.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, I want to add that there are no scholarship for EU students because we got a lot of questions for that, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so we don't have any scholarships that will cover cost of living. And because EU students don't pay tuition fee, and that is because Swedish students don't. And within the EU, it's the same kind of, one rule for everyone within the EU, so we can't discriminate. So that's why it's free, whereas others have to pay.
Yeah.
So I hope this process, it's a lot to take in. Have a look at how to apply. It's a really good page with lots of information and kind of, key dates and everything is on there. I think we should talk a bit more about student life and what do you wish you had known before you came here? It could be academic, or it could be, student life or housing or traveling here or anything.
Oh, I would say housing. It is an issue. I don't think only in Sweden, but other countries up north as well. I would definitely like more information, more experiences from students, because I had a little bit. Even though I had a lot of people coming and suggesting what to do, I still had an issue finding accommodation. So I think this is something that people need to be proactive really early on. Before even applying for the university, just start looking and try to find housing as soon as possible.
I think that's a good point. We have a whole page again on our website, lau.se/accommodation, and you have links to the different housing companies that have the majority of student housing. And what you do is you register with them and you gain points for every day. And the longer you've been in the queue, the more points you end up having. And the more points you have, the more choice you have in terms of finding accommodation. As soon as you start thinking about wanting to study here, you should register with one of the companies.
I would rather suggest if someone would have already applied in the first round, please go and register for the housing companies right away. Don't wait for the results, because it's free of cost to just open an account there. Just give your email address and some couple personal details, and then you have your account set up. And the day you set up, you get points for each day. So don't wait for the result. Hopefully you get a good result, and then you are already edge ahead of other people to get the housing.
Yeah, because you're also in competition with Swedish students,
Yes.
who might have planned this for years.
Yeah.
But I also should emphasize that, while it might be difficult when you do come here in August without having anything kind of pre-planned, there is emergency housing, and you can rent a room of somebody, for example, and usually you have to do that for a month, maybe 2, and then it ends up being all right. I mean, I don't know anybody who's had to go home because they didn't have anywhere to live, or who lived in the street. Nobody. So, it is fine. Anything you wish you'd known?
Of course, Sweden, that's a very beautiful thing about Sweden, that it's almost cashless. And I didn't know this before coming here. And so I got some euros and SEK as well before coming here to use. And I found
you still have that?
That's the fun part. I don't have a lot now, but for emergency purpose, I keep it, but I don't think if I use it. It is used, of course, only when you go for second-hand shoppings, because there are many second-hand places where you can get your furnitures and many other stuffs. You have Facebook groups and other stuffs as well.
Yeah.
So there, because as you come here, you don't have your bank account set up. So you cannot pay them, either PayPal or some other stuff. You can use them, but cash becomes helpful at that point. So when I came, I tried to use most of my cash, and even I tried to help my friends. Like, do you need some cash? I'm purchasing something for second hand.
Actually, have cash. Have some cash.
Yeah, take it. And when I go for shopping next time, you pay for me, or something like that.
Yeah.
So I didn't know much about it, that I should not carry a lot. I didn't carry a lot, but I carried more than required. So
Yeah.
it helped others. It
Yeah.
was a good thing, but this should be known before.
I know my children sometimes get, cash, or they used to get cash for their birthdays, and it was like, they go to H&M, for example, and they go, no, we don't take cash, and it's like, and I'm like, okay, we can go buy some food, because the supermarkets, they take cash.
Yeah.
But it's a very, I think it's a very digital society.
Yeah. It is.
So, a lot of you have to register for exams online. Is that another?
Well, for me, it's a bit different. My program is all of my exams are home exams, so it's different. So I can basically do them anywhere I want. So it's a little different. But generally, you have to register for exam.
Yeah.
Not for my program, but the others, yes.
You do that.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
So
And if you don't get to take the exam.
No, we didn't get to take the exam. So we have like opening period and then closing period before, somewhere between like 10 days before the exam, something like that. And the web page is the LISM, where you go to a student portal from where you can travel to the exam registrations, and they open for a certain amount of period, and you need to register during that.
Yeah.
So if you don't register, you're not allowed to give the
Yes,
exam.
yeah. So
Unless you're studying my program.
but that's, I think, quite rare. Have you experienced any culture clashes? I mean, has there been something that you were like, oh my God, why do they do that? Or did I just do something really strange?
Not in my case. I have not experienced any other classes other than my academics.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, and it itself is kind of wide, so I have not experienced anything such.
Yeah.
How about
Well, I found it really funny. I don't know if it's a cultural thing, but I find it funny when the sun came out during the winter at some point a little bit. I saw people on the street going towards the sun and just trying to take it in. And I found it really strange because people would suddenly stop and just do that. So I was wondering, why is this happening? And then I realized it's because nobody's getting sun. And so I ended up doing it myself at some point.
I think everybody. It is really funny because on campus when it starts getting a bit warmer, not quite yet. I mean, the sun is warming now, but when you start getting like 17, 18 degrees, you'll see students kind of sitting against the student building. There's a big student building on campus which houses the library and other student facilities. But everybody's kind of sitting there and just kind of soaking in the warm rays of the sun. Yes. So it's kind of, it is.
I saw it today as well.
Oh, they've started already?
Yeah, already, yes.
Yeah. Just want to kind of touch a bit upon accommodation, because I think we should probably move on to questions in a minute.
Yeah.
Do you both live in student corridors?
I do.
I don't. Yeah.
You don't?
I couldn't find, because I had issues, as we said, like you have to register early and have all the points. But I ended up with a private, having a room with other roommates in a house, just one room, But it's a really good deal as well. Yeah.
When you're in a corridor?
Yeah, I'm in a corridor.
And tell me, what is a corridor? I mean,
so a corridor is like you get your separate room and your toilet, but the kitchen and living area is shared between several people. In our housing areas, that we have 8 people sharing the kitchen and living area. But the kitchen is wide enough, and the living area is it's a good place to hang out together. And you get your personal room and toilet. So when you want to study alone, you have your own place, and it's very nice to have people from different nationalities. So in the previous semester, we had people from Switzerland, Belgium, Germany, Nigeria, Sweden itself, and India. So it was a good bunch of people, and we used to hang out together. We used to watch movies. We have food nights. So it's a very fun to live in a corridor.
it's a great way of making friends for life, and kind of. And I think I've heard that from a lot of people, how they're, we used to live in the same corridor, and then they're kind of still friends. And
yes.
I was always wondering, what do you do when there are parties and it's too loud? How do you deal with that?
In that case, we agree upon before having such things, and we don't have it all sudden like, okay, after 2 hours we have party. No, we don't do that. People need to say before, and if someone has like study plans or something, we try to ask them to not do it tonight, maybe later. So everyone has to agree on that part. Yes.
Okay, that's good. I just thought, the answer would be, what do? You join in.
That's another option.
That's another option. And most student accommodation is near here. Are you in Ried?
Yeah, I live in Ried.
Yeah. Where's yours?
I'm between the city and the university.
Okay. But I think majority of the corridor rooms and the housing is, how long does it take to cycle? 5 minutes? 10 minutes?
I take 8 minutes.
You take 8 minutes. Good mix.
Yeah.
But I think
But
you
10
say,
minutes
Yeah,
is
say 10
some-
minutes.
yeah.
And you have lots of corridors, so I think sometimes you do kind of, you see each other, and,
Yes.
it's near, so it's very much a kind of concentrated campus in a way.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of students tend to have a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's a very student-friendly place. You go out, you see most of them as students, and you can network, you can talk to them. You have play areas, and yeah, you can have you have open areas, open fields as well, where people do barbecue and meet together. So
Right, and then you can cycle, and that's what most
Yes.
students do. I think that's one of the first things people do when they come here. They buy a bike.
yes,
Yeah,
definitely.
second-hand bike.
of
Yes.
course.
Yep. We're going to move on to questions, but before we do that, I just want to kind of quickly do this kind of overview of the key dates. So the main application round is mid-October to middle of January. And even though you're kind of just starting to think about coming here, have a look at what you do need to submit. Any supporting documents, book time for a language test if you need to. See if you have all your transcripts in order. And the sooner you apply in the application window, the sooner somebody might spot if your application is not complete, for example, and the more time you have to ask lots of questions. And I think the quickest way to get an answer from us is to actually reply to an email you've already had from us. Otherwise, also check out our Facebook, Linköping University, Instagram, which you both hosted, haven't you?
Yes,
Yeah.
we did.
Yeah, our students run our Instagram account. I think it's a brilliant source of information and just tips. A lot of tips on second-hand shopping or kind of nicest place to do this or that, but also I think study tips and just getting an insight into your life, which we can also find on the blog.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the blog post, I know there are lots of blog posts about how to apply, different steps to take, and but also how to survive the cold, for example.
Yes.
So it's a really good place to have a look. So it's International Program Students at LIU, ridiculously long name, but that's what it's called. We also have a podcast, Fika with Us. Have you been guests on that?
Yes.
Yeah?
multiple
I
times.
haven't yet.
Yeah. But again, it's lots of really good tips about accommodation, application, what to expect really.
Student life.
Student life, exactly, yeah. Would you like to add anything before we open up for questions?
I think we can have questions.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's start with the question.
Let's do that. So I'm going to do this. Let's see, and we have the Q&A section. There we go. In my university admission account, it's showing conditionally qualified. Did I get selected? This is a question that I can't answer. You have to wait until the 7th of April. 7th of April is when all the results are announced. So I'm afraid you won't get any kind of quicker answer in any way. So keep an eye out. The next one is again about the results early April. 7th of April is when the results are announced. So have a look on our website, but I'm sure we will flag it in social media and so on as well. Next question is, where did it go? Is it possible to pay the application fee or is it too late? I'm afraid it is too late. Most programs have closed. To be able to apply for a program, you have to be able to click on the Apply Now button. And if that button is not on the program page, you won't be able to apply. It means the program is closed. So on the 15th of October or around there, you'll have a look at the program that you're interested in and you'll see that the button appears. And then that takes you to universityadmissions.se and you can complete the application there. So you don't do the application on our website, you do it somewhere else, but we have links to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, another one. How many students get scholarships? Not many. One, sometimes two on a program, and not all programs give out scholarships. Maybe 25, 30 students get scholarships, and they're partial tuition fee waivers. And I think this past year, I don't think anybody got more than 50%. But Swedish Institute have really good scholarships. They cover the full tuition and cost of living. They are only open to some countries though. But have a look at, I think it's called SI Scholarship for Young Professionals.
Yeah, I have been knowing this as SI scholarships.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a good scholarship.
Yeah, they do offer some good.
Yeah, they have some really good ones. Right, another question about apartments. When can we start registering interest in apartments rooms? In studentbostäder, for example, you need to have admission to start registering for interest. So April, do you think it's better to wait until June, July before registering? Interest in the available housing, thank you. I'd say no. So studentbostäder, did they require you to have been admitted?
No, you can. They just need an email,
Yeah.
and you just register. You can do that before even applying. You don't need either to have applied before. Just be sure that you want to go to Sweden, and I would suggest to start even years if you can before.
Yeah.
Yeah, but no, you don't need to. Afterwards, you will need to present after we get accepted to present, of course, that you got.
Yeah,
university,
because you won't be able to take up any housing offers without having.
I would like to add here, it's about showing interest to the apartments. The account that can be created years before to collect the points, and you need to log in once in 6 months for the account not to get suspended. But showing interest can be done when there is new housing listed, and they show that from when this housing is available. So if you see right now in months of March, you will not see any house that is available from August, or there are less chances of seeing any house that is available from August as of now, or you will get very less options. So in the month of keep looking, I would suggest keep looking on the web page. Whenever you see any house that is being listed and it is available from the time you come, you show the interest, and the amount of people that show interest, people who have the highest amount of points, they get offered first. If they accept, if they're not, then the next person gets offered.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's how it works.
Yeah.
So I think it's this thing of being able to register. You can register, but you can't register interest for a housing, for an accommodation, unless you're admitted. Yeah. Thank you. Let's see. The next question is actually for the bachelor application for the bachelor program. Do you recommend that you should apply for the international round despite the EU citizenship, or would the application automatically be extended? Let me see. I'm not sure. Is there any benefit of this approach? No, there's two separate application rounds. So you either apply in the first one, which is closes in January, and then it's not like if you don't get admitted there that it kind of moves on to the other one. But if you, for example, you have been rejected on the 7th of April because you didn't supply the right document or something, you can then actually apply in the Swedish round again, but submitting, the correct. So there is no kind of. It's easier to apply in the first round because it's in English, but apart from that, as an EU student, you'll have more time again if you've registered in the first applied in the first round, because you'll know early April if you're admitted or not. Whereas the other one you have to wait till July to know, which only gives you a month to prepare and move here. Yeah. So I think the first round is probably a better one. Yeah. I hope that answered your question. What's the age limit to be admitted to LIU?
I think I'm the older one, so I don't think there is an age limit.
No, I don't think there's a bottom age limit either. I don't know. I mean, most students who come here, if you do the bachelor, students are 18 or 19. Masters, I think majority tend to be early 20s. but some are late 20s, early 30s, 40s. No, but and I think it's no, and there's no upper age limit. You know, maybe I'll do a master's when I retire. Yeah, who knows?
Good choice.
Yeah. We have someone wondering. Okay, no, that was a good afternoon. I have applied for the business administration as my second choice. Can I still apply for the LIU scholarship? I'm afraid no, you can't. It has to have been your first choice. That's kind of, and I think most universities will have that criteria. So only eligible if you've applied on time and with the program as your first choice. Yeah. Is it possible to find a job while studying? This is a tricky one. Some students do find jobs. I'm going to let you two talk about your experience. But you do need to spend 40 hours studying. So I think what we've sometimes seen is a student coming here without the means to support themselves while studying. So they have to rely on work. And that never works well because it really interferes with studying.
Yeah.
So it's not a good idea to think that, oh, I'm going to work my way through my master's because the jobs are difficult to find, especially if you don't speak Swedish. However, if you only want some kind of extra income or something extra to do, I think you two might have different experience of the availability.
Would you like to go first?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So, of course, it is not recommended by the university to work while studying because we are supposed to devote 40 hours a week towards our studies. But if you need some additional income, you can try working. You have jobs at LIU pages as well. Jobs at LIU where you can go and look for some job that is maybe relatable to you. And most of the jobs other than the university, they require you to speak Swedish, and it's very hard to find any English speaking job as a part-time. It's not impossible, but yeah, it's very hard, and since it is not recommended, unless it is very important to you, try not to do a part-time and invest a lot of time in it. But yeah, you can definitely go and look at the jobs at LIU. It can help you.
Yeah, I agree completely. And I would just suggest if you can get an online job so you can juggle a little bit with time, because it's 40 hours per week of studying, but it's not always the same. So weeks by weeks are completely different. So if you had something online on your own from your own country, something that would really be helpful. So just
Yeah. I think I think that's a really good point. Is that you know that there are periods when it might be more quiet and you might be able to take on more, and then there are periods when you have exam periods and you'll struggle. So it's not really recommended. You know, I know of students who have done. They've for example helped in the kind of student union restaurant, or they've delivered newspapers really early in the morning, or you know, there are little things like that. But it's not. We don't recommend it. I think we should have, you know, another question is that people tend to worry about. Is Sweden expensive?
I'll go with this one. I've traveled to a couple of countries, even in the US, and I have to say it is, compared to the rest of the Europe, it is expensive. So you have to be prepared for that, and both mentally and financially. But it is, if you manage to find later on a job, it is manageable. So it is expensive, but also your salary is, there's a good ratio to that.
When you finish studying, yeah, exactly, yeah.
I have not traveled outside of India for a long period. Maybe I had been there for a long time, and this is the first time that I'm experiencing a different continent. So I believe, it's kind of expensive when I compare to my home country, and in terms of many things. But yeah, this can be managed very smartly, like going for groceries a week, planning ahead, and looking for good offers, and there are many ways that you can manage your expenses. You can manage an expense sheet to see how much are you expending every month on different stuffs. So it can be managed in a smart way, but definitely it is expensive compared to the home country.
I like that. I forgot you're the statistics man.
Yes, I do.
Yeah,
I do
see?
that. I
Yeah.
do that.
There's actually an app that you can see the week's offers from the supermarkets.
Yes.
So you can actually base your shopping on that. But I think, I think my experience of, I think in Sweden, eating out is more expensive than other countries. Drinking or, the kind of, I think those parts are more expensive. And obviously it is more expensive than India. But I think, coming from, when you think of Northern Europe, I'm not necessarily sure that rent and kind of those outgoings is that much more. So I think that the necessities, I think, are all right. But yeah, you have to you have to learn to cook.
We have a lot of tips around how to live an affordable life on our student Live blog. So people can read through that.
Yeah. I remember talking to one student who, I don't know how much, I think she lived off like 800 or 1,000 kronas a month on food. So I was like, well, what do you eat? And she went, a lot of potatoes. But yeah, so learn how to make things with potatoes. What do you think that students should do when they first arrive? When you first arrive, you get here, and most people, you can either fly to Linköping, or you fly to Stockholm, or you can fly to Copenhagen, and if you're flying to Stockholm or Copenhagen, you get the train here, and then you get off. What should they do?
Okay. I came directly to Linköping, and I came from India to Amsterdam, and then I had a layover there. Then I came directly to Linköping, so I preferred, because of too much of luggage that I brought from India, I thought not to carry it along for the train and other stuff. So the first things that I would suggest is go for identity cards, and since we come from India, we need to have a residence permit here. After residence permit, we need to apply for Swedish ID to have bank accounts. So the very first thing that I did on the next day that I arrived in the evening. If I would have come in morning, I would have done it on the same day. But the very next day, I went to the Skatteverket office, and then I applied.
Tax agency.
Yeah, the tax agency, and I registered for the social security number. And from there, I went to IKEA to have my basic things that I need, like a blanket or something that you say. And then I went to the LIU for my ID card, to get my student ID card. So I did these all things on the very same day, that is the next day that I arrived. Other than doing arranging your ID cards and your these things, you can look for your basic furnitures. If your room is not furnished, you need to have basic furnishing like bed, table, and other stuff.
Are the corridor rooms, are they furnished?
They are both kinds.
Okay.
The unfurnished are a little cheaper than the furnished ones. I opted for a furnished one, but you have basic furnishing like bed, table, chair, and a bookshelf. So I wanted to add more, and also I needed a blanket. So I went to IKEA, and you can also have it on the second-hand Facebook pages, and you can shop these things on second-hand as well. So other than this, please take a bike. That's very handy. So these are I should suggest for the first things. How are you?
Yeah, I first opted for the bike. Like I just needed a bike to move around, and then of course the tax agency, after applying, registering to the university, tax agency, and everything as soon as possible, just to be done with that, because you can't do anything without the social security number. It's really restrictive. You can't even open up. You can pay, as we said, it's cashless, so it's really hard. But yeah, I would suggest that to be the first thing, and then you will have time to travel a bit, see.
Yeah.
And the personal number, I should add, is you get if you're here for less than 1 year, which some of our 1-year programs are, it is difficult to get what we call personal number, the social security number. It is difficult to get, which means it will be a challenge to open a bank account, for example. So be aware of that. So if you're here for one of the 1-year master programs, make sure that you have a working card, for example, a Visa MasterCard from your home bank. Some students, if you do end up having a part-time job, a few hours, you can get it kind of through your employer, but it's difficult to do so. But you're doing 2-year programs,
Yes.
so you know it's no problem. But it takes a while, doesn't it?
Yeah, it takes. I remember the overall process takes like from getting a social security, applying for a social security number to get a bank account, can itself take more than 4 months, like entire process. So.
And the personal number, how long did that take?
They usually say within 3 months, and
Okay.
I got it like around 2 months.
I was a lucky one, got it really quickly, like in just, I don't know, 10 days or something. So yeah, I've heard stories that it takes a long time. Most of my friends, but I don't know, just got lucky, I think. For me it was quite.
Or maybe
fast,
maybe it's a difference if you're European. I mean,
I don't think so. I
same
have a lot of
databases?
friends from the EU. They still are waiting. Like it's been months.
Oh, wow.
So I don't know. If
Okay.
I don't know. Whether
Yeah.
it's,
Yeah. We have. Is there? And somebody's asking. Are there any separate homes for Indian students where we get Indian food?
We can certainly cook for people who want to, but yeah, you have Indian restaurants as well here. But as you
Yeah.
mentioned,
Do you recommend any of them?
I have not been to, because I like to cook and I prepare good food. I'm a good chef.
Butter chicken?
Of course.
Oh,
I got
yes.
it to my friends as well.
Oh.
So you have Indian restaurants here, but as you mentioned, the eating outside is kind of expensive. And if you have good friends around you like me, then you can have good food as
Remember
well.
his name? Yeah.
Abhijit.
Yeah. Yeah. I think. I mean, there are restaurants for different cuisines, and I think there's a couple of Indian, especially one I think quite new that's supposed to be really good in Tandefors.
Yeah.
But it is expensive. It is. So I think. And I think that's so important. Learn to cook. But there's quite a few. I mean, do you have other Indian friends, or do you kind of do you mix with the ones?
Yes, I do have Indian friends here, and I should say I have many Indian friends here. And we have a student association as well for Indian students. That's called ISO, Indian Student Organization. And we organize, the organization organizes a couple of events. I remember that we had a Diwali event as well. It's one of the very big festival in India. It was organized last year. It's usually in the month of October and November. So at that time that was organized. I'm looking forward to have another event. So yeah, they do organize a couple of events where Indians and even anyone can come for that event, and it's obviously free for students. So yeah, so there are
Anyone,
organizations.
staff as well?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, anyone.
Will there be butter chicken?
That depends on the situation, but I can get you if you want.
Yeah.
Sure.
You can tell her that I love it. Yeah, no, so, I mean, and I think there's an International Students Association with lots of different nationalities, and there's also the ESN, which is actually, I mean, it's mainly the exchange students, but I think ESA and ESN, the European Student Network, I think, they do a lot of things together. So I think it's you know, there's a lot of things to do for international students if they want to meet other international students.
Yeah.
But then there's also loads of Swedish student associations where you can also join.
Yes.
Let's have here. If you arrive in Sweden, do you find someone to guide or help with the process? And my other question is, if you cannot ride a bike, is there another alternative?
You can walk. And yeah, you have a very good public transportation system here. The bus here is very throughout the entire city, and since it's not a very big city, it doesn't take a lot of time to go from one part of the city to the another part. So it's very well connected, and you can of course walk, and in winters you should walk. The bike may skid.
Yeah, and I think the walking is I mean, I live near the university, and I think walking from my house to the center of town, I think it takes like 45-50 minutes, and so the university is closer to the city center. So what would it take, half an hour to walk to town from the university?
To town, yeah.
But there are also these, you can rent a scooter.
Oh yeah,
Of course you can.
yes.
I forgot, this is so
those are
new.
really-
yes.
If it's pretty easy, you just download an app and just rent it.
Yeah, and
it's
off you go. Yeah, that's true. But yeah, the bus, there are buses, and they are regular, and that's a good alternative as well. There was another question in there. What was the other question? It's gone from my screen. It wasn't just about the transport. It was also about. No.
Just to add for the transportation, meanwhile you can think of the question.
Yeah.
So if you live in the student area that is Reed, which is very close to university, it takes hardly 15 minutes or 20 minutes to walk from Reed to the university. So sometimes in the winter when I don't feel like biking or it's a good sunny day and I want to feel some good sunlight on my face, I prefer walking, and sometimes when I walk with my bike. So yeah, it's not that far. It's a small city compared to other big cities.
And I think that's kind of part of the charm as well, is, you know, you don't get lost in a big city. And I studied in London, and, you know, I was never really part of the student life in the way I think you can be here with everybody so close. I mean, there's student dorms and student accommodation there as well, but it's still easy to kind of get lured away by the bright lights of the big city. But I think, and one of the benefits of being here as well is to the fact that it's not far. It is close, so you save a lot of time on traveling.
I remember the other question now.
Yeah, what was it?
It was if you have someone to show you around the city to help you for the basic things. So yeah, I remember the student organizations that you mentioned, ESN and ISA, that is International Student Association, I guess, for ISA, and
ISA.
ESN, I guess it's for
Erasmus
or Student Network, or European Student Network. I'm not
Erasmus,
sure.
I don't know.
Anyway, so it's ESN and ISA. They organize too many events and throughout the year. And especially during the welcome period, when people come to the university in both semesters, they have something like buddy program or something like that. And where someone can opt to be your buddy, and they create a small group of 4, 5, 6, 10 people, and you have one person who is already living here as your buddy, and they'll organize some kind of meeting at some city center or maybe at university, or they'll take you on a tour to the Linköping. They'll show you the university around, or to the Gamla Linköping. So these events are there, and where a student organization help you to know the city better.
So definitely look up the student unions or the student associations. And what we usually have on Instagram in the summer, we'll also have some kind of speed dating type thing. But you know, speed date, matchmaking, where you can find other students who have been admitted. So you can actually kind of coordinate arriving here.
The same program, right?
The same program, yeah. And some of the programs, like the Bachelor, for example, they have quite a lot of I mean, they're kind of big brothers, big sisters, and they do quite a lot with the new ones. And the same thing, the Business Administration do that. So some programs are more active than others. Another question from the same guy called Bode. I'm Indian. Do homes provide the kitchen utilities, or should we buy?
Sorry, come again?
Do the student accommodation, do they provide kitchen utilities, or kitchen utensils or utilities? Or should we buy?
In terms of that, when you come to any student corridor, you should ideally have too many plates or cutleries before, because many students who purchase it, they don't carry along. So when I arrived, I didn't see that, and I directly as I mentioned, I went to IKEA. I prefer to have my own plates and cups and fork, knives, and I got one pair of each. And then when I came to the kitchen and I saw, like, I have like 40, 50 plates, and I don't have space to keep the fork or knife. So it was flooded basically. Everything was there, but especially if you are Indian and if you want to cook something Indian, you need some special utensils you would not be wondering about. It's hard to find it here, if you say the pressure cooker or something like that. So you should bring it along, which I did. And if you can bring some of the utensils which would be hard to find here along with you. The regular utensils, you can have it here in your corridor. It should be there from before. In case it's not, it's very rare, you can purchase it.
And where do you get spices and, you know, because I think that is probably, you know, pressure cooker, I think, you know, you can buy online and stuff, but where do you get the specific spices?
So that's a tricky part. I got it from India, and surprisingly it's still there. It has not, it's not finished yet. A couple of them have finished, but when you live in Reed, there is a shop called Orient Leaf in the Reed Centrum itself, and you can get most of the spices there. I should say all of them, but definitely not on Indian rates.
No.
It's imported from India or some neighboring countries, so it will be a little expensive. So I would suggest you to carry some along, and when it is finished, you can purchase here for sure.
Thanks. I think with the Greek food, there's actually a Greek restaurant in town.
Yeah, I haven't. I've been to an Indian one though. I really liked it. Yeah, but not the Greek one.
No,
Yeah.
no. I think
But I
it's
also brought spices with me because I didn't know what I'll find here. So
yeah. But I think it's probably easier if you're from kind of not as far away.
Yeah.
I think we're coming to an end of this webinar. We'll have a last question. Is housing expensive?
Compared to Greece, for example, yes, it is. I don't know, compared to India, but
Yeah.
I think student accommodation is quite good value.
yes, if you can.
Yeah, if you can
one,
find a corridor room, I think it's what 3,500, 4,000.
For me, it's 3,500
Yeah.
Swedish kroners. Yes.
Yeah, it's about 350 euros. And you get what's included? Internet.
Yeah, internet is included. Electricity is included in the student corridors. And what else? Yeah, you get your own. You get your vacuum cleaners. You have. If you are lucky enough, your corridor can have a dishwasher like me. I have one. Many of the corridors they don't have it. And you have everything set up there. And compared to other cities in Sweden, I believe Linköping is kind of cheaper because in Gothenburg or in Stockholm, you have expensive rents as well. But here, student accommodations are really cheap compared to other accommodations.
Yeah, so I think the 3,500 is it's a really good price, especially with internet being included and
Electricity
usually
as well.
include
Electricity at the
everything,
moment.
like electricity, heat, everything. It's
Yeah.
included usually most of the time. Yeah, so that's good.
which is really good. But I think it's and then you can cycle. So I think it's kind of. I think that's a really good point that it tends to be cheaper than the big cities.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
I think we should wrap it up. Yeah. Do you have any last kind of piece of advice you'd like to give someone thinking about studying here?
Go through our. I'm going to mention it again, but go through our blog post because a lot of us have wrote down our experiences, so you can read details and get all the information you need to. And also look at our Instagram because we have a lot of direct contact with everyone, so it's easier for us to answer questions and it's easier for you to ask any questions.
Yeah.
But I would start there if you haven't applied yet and everything.
I would suggest to follow university on Instagram, like Linköping University and other student organizations as well, like ESN, ISA or ISO, anything if you would like to. Other than that, come here as raw and experience whatever you can as a fresh mind rather than having some notion from behind. So it would be a fresh, real experience, but it's good to know some basic stuff like carry some winter clothes, not too many, because if you carry from your home country, it may not be helpful in Swedish winters. So get the heavy clothes here, but don't forget to carry the basic ones.
You can get things on, not online. You can, but secondhand. There's lots of good secondhand shops, and I think there's also LIU student secondhand. I think it's relatively new, because people leave, and so and that's, again, you can get. I think I've ended up buying furniture from students moving out. So it's a good good piece of advice. I'd like to say thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you
talking to
for
you.
having us.
And thank you for joining us. The recording will be available on our website, and you'll find it on YouTube or Vimeo. I'm not sure which ones we uploaded to. But thank you. And if you have any questions, don't forget to go to Instagram.
Instagram, yes.
or email us at the university. Thank you.
Thank you.